And good day, everybody. This is Z Marcel Pertu, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. Very excited that you're with us today on January 7th, 2020. Happy New Year. This is our first show of the new year, the new decade, and everything in between. So I got to make sure I don't say 2019 too much and mess up my calendar time. But everything is all good. We're very excited, as I said, to be with you today. We have a jam packed show for you as always. We're going to discuss the NFL playoffs and coaching news all throughout the world of National Football League in our Gridiron Blitz. And then in the second segment of the show, we're going to break down some college athletics in the Peach State and technical state of Georgia athletics. As always, we want to follow everything that we're doing. Head to the mothership, thesportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can go to our Twitter and Instagram social media pages, and it's the word Sports Inquirer. That is the titles of them. You just look those up. It's all one word, and you can follow everything that we're doing. Go to Facebook, and we have two pages on there as well. The Sports Inquirer, those separate words, and Sports Inquirer, which is one word. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud under The Sports Inquirer. You get archives of our previous podcasts from the Sports Inquirer Show, which you're listening to now, to Verbal Submission, which we will be recording tomorrow. New Japan had their Wrestle Kingdom event, professional wrestling. So we got to do a full recap of all the activities from there in our Verbal Submission, which is our podcast on combat sports. And also we have different shows on there as well, like I think we have Stagger Screen on there, which is our basketball show, which we do need to do a new season of as well. And you get all of our archives of our interviews and pressers from the Atlanta Hawks to the Georgia State men's basketball team and the College Park Skyhawks, other sport entities that we've been able to attend, some exclusive interviews that you can track on there, and you can get our stuff in the future. You subscribe to those pages, you get all of our items as well when we post them in the near future. So as I said, this is our first show in 2020, and it's a very good year looking out for us so far. I've been able to do our calendar, and the way things work here on the Inquirer is that some people ask, is there a vacation time or off time? There really isn't. It's just seasonal. We go season to season. So right now, we're fully entrenched in college basketball season. So we're doing a lot there with Georgia State and some Georgia Tech as well. We're in the middle of the NFL playoffs. So obviously we're discussing a lot of those items as well. We also have college football, which we'll talk about too a little bit later. I'll touch on that technical state a little bit, but football is coming towards an end because some of you, by the time you listen to this, the Clemson LSU national championship game may have taken place already, but we only have one college football game left in the FBS. So we've kind of transitioned away from that. NBA kind of is in full swing with the Hawks and everything going on. Their All-Star break coming up within the next month or so, a month and a half. So and we have Atlanta United still getting news from there and some confirmed moves and some trades and some transactions that are going on. But training camp should be opening up within the month because the United have the CONCACAF Champions League. They're going to start that up in February. So I should be expecting to get an email or some information within the next few weeks about their training camp schedule. And once that gets going, that takes up our entire summer. And the College Park Skyhawks, we've been able to latch on to that entity, the NBA G League developmental team for the Atlanta Hawks. They play down in College Park. It's been a unique experience seeing a new part of the city of new part of Metro Atlanta, and we've enjoyed doing that as well. So just head to the site, make sure you continue to see everything that we're doing and trying to expand our brand and get it going and everything that's going on there. And just contact us through those entities as well. I do enjoy seeing the likes and getting the comments on our different platforms. That's really cool and appreciative of all of you that do that. I'm very happy that you interact with us in that type of way. So we're very appreciative of that. And when we come back, we're going to take a break. And the return will bring on the Gridiron Blitz. The NFL wildcard weekend just took place, so we'll recap some of that and use the notes in the world of the NFL as far as coaching hirings and firings. I was literally doing my updates to the outline, and 2 coaching moves were announced within the past 2 hours. So things are moving rapidly and fluidly. So we'll recap and discuss all of that stuff here on the Sports Inquirer Show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sports Inquirer Show. Marcel Patriots speaking with you here on January 7th, 2020. Once again, Happy New Year to all of you out there. Hope you had a good holiday season. I surely did. Good Christmas, good New Year. Stayed in Metro Atlanta for all the activities. Didn't travel too much, but a lot of good times with friends and family. Got to meet some new faces, kind of communicate with some old faces or renew some relationships with them. So, good times for me overall. Hopefully it was good for you. So we just had wildcard weekend take place this past weekend. And the way I'm going to break it down is I'm going to do AFC and NFC, go over the games, and I think through those, we'll kind of touch on each of the teams that advanced, and also recap the seasons for the teams that were eliminated. We'll start with the biggest story overall with Tennessee able to beat New England 20-13 in the wild card round. First time New England has not made a divisional round since 2009. So, I mean, they're eliminated. So, they're not even going to be in the divisional round, the championship game, the Super Bowl, AFC championship game, and then the Super Bowl. They're eliminated from all of that stuff. My takeaway from the contest, we'll start with Tennessee because there'll be plenty of time to speculate with the future of the Patriots. We'll start with Tennessee. Derrick Henry was the best player on the field the entire contest. 34 rushes, 182 yards, 1 touchdown. Had a big 20-plus yard catch as well in the victory. Ryan Tannehill only threw 15 pass attempts and 72 yards. He did have a TD pass in there. But when you could go on the road and dominate the clock like they did and get 14 points from your offense, and then 20 overall, there was a pick 6 by Brady thrown at the end. Very good job by Tennessee overall. They stuck to their game plan. They ran the ball and stayed consistent with it. Henry broke out with some good yardage or maybe double digits, but it was a lot of 3-yard runs, 4-yard runs, 5, and just kept pounding the ball and getting consistency on that end. And Tannehill, you only threw 15 pass attempts. That's a good thing. And he actually had a really good passing percentage. I think he's had the best passer rating in the second half of the regular season by any quarterback, or top 2 or 3. I have to get my research on that. But overall, when you're able to do that and control the ball, that leads to much success. Tom Brady, 209 yards passing, no touchdowns. The 1 interception is at the very end. With New England, my thoughts on them is that them as a championship caliber team as constructed now, those days are done. And they've had a tremendous run. I think 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 championships. Brady breaking all kinds of records, cementing himself as probably the greatest quarterback of all time. Bill Belichick putting himself in the position of maybe the best head coach of all time, or at least top 2 or 3 if you're into rankings. Same thing with Brady. They had a great run. Runs come to an end. It happens. I thought Brady throughout the year looked like a 42-year-old that's playing quarterback. He'd have times of a good throw here and there, but the consistency was not there. And you can see it in the play calling by offensive coordinator Josh McDaniel and the Patriots coaching staff. 2 instances of that. That Miami game that ended the regular season that the Patriots lost at home. You look back on that, they had, at the end of the first half, I think they had 2 timeouts, about a minute and 30 seconds left on the clock. They were in decent field position to drive down, maybe get a touchdown, go for a field goal attempt. They just sat on the ball and let the clock run out. They didn't trust Brady to run a 2-minute drill. And then you look at another scenario in the Tennessee contest in the wild card round. 1st and goal from the 1-yard line, 3 rushing attempts. They didn't trust Brady to throw the ball at all. They didn't trust him even to a quarterback sneak. They were coaching around the inabilities of Tom Brady. And that's not to say Brady, as I mentioned, he's had an outstanding career. He even mentioned it post-game. He's probably had the best career of any player in history of the NFL. Not saying he's the greatest player of all time, but you look at the accolades, career records individually and the teams, it's not going to be surpassed for a very long time, if ever. But in 2020, as we're talking about this now, he's just not an elite quarterback anymore. I would say he's maybe 10 to 15 range. And a lot of people they don't want to hear it. The media doesn't want to hear it. You have certain people that they look at Brady and his body type's the same. He looks the same physically. And even some of the throws that he makes, every 1 out of 3 or 4 are some nice crisp throws. but he's not the same quarterback, and that's understandable. That's just an age thing. And if you look at the Patriots roster overall, they've broken down in many ways, especially on the offensive end. Injuries on the offensive line, the lack of vertical threat. Gronkowski's retirement hurt them throughout the entire year. Antonio Brown, he would have been a viable option, but obviously he played one game and he's dealing with his own issues and is not on the team anymore. Josh Gordon was a player that I think they expected to be a good threat for him. Josh Gordon got traded in the middle of the season away from New England. Personal issues as well. You look at Julian Edelman, shell of himself, whether it's injuries, age, fatigue. He's not the same guy that he was even last year when he was the MVP of the Super Bowl. You add all those things together, and it's not a good team. Now, it's a good team to still win 9 to 10 games and be a division winner, especially in the AFC East, which has improved. You saw the Bills make a step this year. Miami and the Flores might be solid. The Jets kind of meddling, but you have a young quarterback. There's always hope there. But overall, if you look at the other teams in the AFC that have gotten better and have young talent around them, you look at Baltimore, Kansas City, even Houston, those teams are better. Tennessee just went there and beat them. All teams with relatively young quarterbacks and young cores that are building up, while New England defensively were very strong this year, but you look at the first half of the year, had one of the weaker schedules in history, and they got worn down by the end trying to carry the team. You look at the Miami game; they had that final drive to win the contest with Ryan Fitzpatrick leading the Dolphins down the field. They needed that victory to end the regular season to get at least a bye in the playoffs. The Patriots defense was unable to stop them. Look at, you say Tennessee. Okay, they only gave up 14 points, really, on the Patriots defense, which is a good number. That should be a winnable game. We talk about the offensive issues, but they were just not able to get those crucial stops when needed against the Titans. So you got all of that together. Where did the Patriots go? I don't think Belichick is going anywhere, and obviously we'll get to this in a few minutes, but the Giants made their hire. I thought there was any franchise that Belichick would ever leave for, it'd be the Giants for personal reasons and the schematical reasons. They have a young quarterback in Daniel Jones that he liked coming out of the draft. Saquon Barkley, you have high draft pick, you can work with the Giants, but it looks like Belichick's going to stay in New England. Brady's the interesting one. I see so many scenarios with it. And I said, we'll have an entire offseason to kind of look at where they're going to go. Retirement's not going to happen. And Belichick's not going to retire either. Those two guys are stubborn to a fault, and that makes them great. They're not going to leave their final games as a head coach or as a quarterback losing at home to Tennessee in the wildcard round. That's not going to take place. They're both going to take a shot at it. As I said, Belichick, I think, stays in New England and tries to rebuild the team in his own way. I believe the past few years he's wanted to alleviate himself of Brady, but Brady keeps winning, and you can't kick a guy out after making a Super Bowl appearance or winning the Super Bowl. And obviously Robert Kraft, the owner of the team, has significant influence with Tom Brady. He treats him like his son, so you know he's not going to be eliminated from the team. But now, since Brady has showed regression, they lost in the wild card round, which is something they haven't done, as I mentioned, in over 10 years, or more than 10 years. Now there's a reason to move on from Brady, who is a free agent. He's not under contract with the team at all. And I know Robert Kraft talked about, he said he would hopes and praise that Brady will come back to the team, but Brady will have options, and he's taken financial cuts. And I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. People talk about Brady's personal life and how his wife makes more money. I don't like talking about a man's money. That's a general rule. I'm touching on it in this case, though, because it is relevant to the game itself. And people talk about how he takes pay cuts because he doesn't need the money, and I said his wife makes more money than he does. Makes more money than he does because she's a successful model and all of that stuff. I was talking to somebody about this. I don't care. I want my own money. I want to be paid and compensated in a fair manner. And Brady has not had that opportunity. He's making 32 quarterbacks. In essence, he's making around top 15 money when he's produced and performed like a top 5 quarterback, maybe even more. Now, this year he did regress and stuff like that. But you don't think that a Chargers team or a Raiders or another franchise won't give him a nice $30 million deal for 2 years? 2 years, 60, 70 million. which would be a significant pay increase from what he made in New England, which is around $23 million this year. I think you're playing yourself if you think that Brady's just going to be the loyal soldier once again and just accept a low level compensation and just go back to New England and just like, hey, let's try it again. No, he's going to get paid a pretty handsome sum. And furthermore, we talk about Patriots and how they are great using the cap and are great working around the salary cap and not paying guys and circumventing things. They have a lot of money under the cap that they can spend. They're going to go out, or if I'm Brady, they need to make a promise to me or make commitment to get improvements on the offensive line, improvement with the receivers, things like that. Improve even the defense if there's some older guys on there. Once again, the Patriots have the oldest defense in the NFL. Those guys are not going to get any better than they did this year. So if I'm Brady, I need some commitment from the franchise that they will make some of these moves, or he can go. He needs to play the game. He needs to talk with San Diego. I keep saying San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers. Talk to the Oakland Raiders. Talk to the Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers. Why not? All those teams have guys who are either in the last year of their contracts or free agents. The Chargers are the most obvious one because Phillip Rivers is a free agent as well, so they can just slide Tom Brady in there. And then you look at Roethlisberger. He has only 1 year left on his contract. Dak Prescott, he's in kind of a free agent in his own way as well. He needs to play the field and talk to all of those entities and make that happen. I think ultimately he may find his way back to New England and they'll work it out. But the days of them automatically winning 13 games, getting a bye, and making it to Super Bowl are over. And they've had a great one, and that's just the way it is. So now Tennessee moves on to the next round where they will have the Baltimore Ravens, who are the top overall seed. We'll do our previews on the next show, but a quick prediction on that. You got to figure Baltimore will be very physical. We will be rested. I think Ingram will be back at running back. I think the Tennessee will make it close and make it interesting just because of their style of play. They don't turn the ball over. They run it pretty well. But you got to figure Baltimore is a pretty solid favorite in that regard. You move on to the next wild card game. Houston was able to defeat Buffalo 22-19 in overtime. The Bills are up 16-0. Looked like they were rolling, but then Deshaun Watson started making his presence felt. Finished the day with 247 yards passing, 1 touchdown and passing, had 55 rushing yards, led the team in that regard. Buffalo blew the game. Very disappointing. They were playing so well, but they were so loose with the ball, and especially Josh Allen. Now, he did finish with a game-high 264 yards passing, 92 rushing yards as well. Both quarterbacks led the team in rushing in a playoff game, which I don't think happened in more than 50 years. So just a very unique game in that regard. Watson probably with the play of his career, throwing that late pass to set up the field goal in overtime. 2 blitzers coming at him. He spun out of that and made a completed pass. You worry about Watson. He takes so many hits, and he keeps coming back. He's a tough guy. Maybe the toughest quarterback you'll find in the league these days. But they got the win. That was the important thing. And now they move on to face Kansas City in the next round. The Chiefs well rested. I think that game has potential to be double-digit playoff. When I say blowout, by playoff standards, that's a double-digit win in my opinion. And I think that's what the Chiefs are going to do there. Now, we'll go back to Buffalo. A little recap of them. They made some good strides this year. Playoffs, second time in 3 years. Got to double-digit wins. Josh Allen, very athletic, but just very loose with the ball. A lot of passes could have been intercepted. He did a lateral and we're in their 2-minute drive towards the end of the game, trying to set up the field goal to tie it, to head to overtime, just a blind lateral to a teammate who luckily hit it out of bounds so that Buffalo kept possession of the ball. All that stuff he's a very excitable, erratic player. If he finds his calm and can do that, I think he'll be a pretty solid player for the Bills. But yeah, so Houston moves on to Kansas City. We look at the NFC. Very intriguing games here as well. Minnesota was able to win in New Orleans 26-20 in overtime. I'm trying to figure out if this was Kirk Cousins' breakout game that justified the big contract. We talked about Tom Brady breaking down all the contracts. Cousins is a top 5 paid quarterback in the NFL, and his money is fully guaranteed. And We know about his struggles on Monday Night Football. I think he's winless in 10 or at least 9 Monday Night Football games. He's struggled against teams that have winning records that he's opposing, but he went to New Orleans and produced one of the best performances, maybe the best performance of his career. 242 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and of course that TD pass was a Kyle Rudolph in overtime for the game winner. Look, and let's talk about that now. Was it a push off? Probably. Should have been called? Maybe. But I look at this as playoff football. I know everyone says rules are rules. If you make a call in the preseason or the second game of regular season, you should be able to make it in the postseason. I understand that perspective, but I think when two guys are going for the ball and going at it, and one person outmuscles him, like Kyle Rudolph did, that's gonna happen. He caught the ball, it's a touchdown. If they called pass interference, I would have not been offended by that at all, on either side. But if you're gonna, any call would have been fine. But the fact that the Saint fans once again and supporters are saying it's conspiracy against the NFL is against them and all that other stuff, no. The Saints had plenty of chances to tie the game and to take the lead and had plenty of chances to do that, and they just did not do that at all. But going back to Cousins, I'm not necessarily going to say that he's off the hook and that he's a big game quarterback, but I won't say that he's not a big game quarterback. And it doesn't. What I'm trying to say is that he didn't completely. He was not in the negative as far as being a big game quarterback, someone you can rely on to make those big plays. He didn't go to the positive. He went more towards the neutral. So I'm not going to go into a game anymore with Cousins, including his upcoming one at San Francisco, and say, oh, he's going to have a really bad game. He's going to choke and do terribly. I'm going to come into it with a neutral perspective and say, okay, let's see what he can do. We've seen him play well now in a big game. We've seen him not play not well. So we're going to come into this with a neutral view of the way things are. So that's my thoughts on Cousins and what he's doing. You take away from this game as well, Dalvin Cook coming back. He missed the last few games of the regular season for the Vikings. He came back, 28 rushes, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is so critical to the success of the Vikings. I thought him and Christian McCaffrey of the Vikings were arguably the 2 best running backs in the NFL before Cook caught up with his injuries. But you could tell he was healthy and faced a very good Saints defense on the road and got those yards. Adam Thielen, 7 catches, 129 yards receiving. Big contribution from him as well. Now you have to look at New Orleans. They've had a really odd exit the past 3 years of their seasons. You look back in 2018, it was the Minneapolis Miracle where the big pass, the end of the contest, so they lost that game. Then last year, made the NFC Championship game, faced the Rams. We all know about that controversy with the hit on Alvin Kamara while he was trying to catch the ball, no pass interference called. What people forget about that game, though, is that while it did go to overtime, the Saints got the ball and had a chance to put up points and win that game. They did not do that. The Rams got the ball and were able to score. So even with that questionable non-pass interference call, the Saints still had a chance to win that game. And there were opportunities for the Saints to win this contest as well. Drew Brees, 208 yards passing, 1 TD, 1 interception. He had an okay game. I talked about Brady and him reaching that advanced age and struggles. You're starting to see the same thing with Drew Brees. I don't think it's as drastic as it is with Brady, but when Taysom Hill is the best quarterback on your team, at least for that game, that's an issue. Taysom Hill had a 50-yard pass, the biggest passing play of the game for the Saints. He had a 50-yard catch. He had a 25-yard run. He was the better quarterback for the Saints, at least in that game. I'm not saying he's a better quarterback than Drew Brees right now overall, but you got to wonder with Brees. He's not going anywhere. He'll sign another 1-2 year deal and keep it going. But if we're asking all these questions about Brady, we have to ask the same questions about Brees and what's going on there. But the Vikings were able to get a very big win and now head to San Francisco. I think the Vikings are a live dog in that game. And I think the AFC games, the 2 home teams, Kansas City and Baltimore, are very strong favorites in those games. I think with the NFC and great Seattle in about 30 seconds because they were able to beat Philadelphia and they move on to face the Packers on the road. Seattle and Minnesota are very live road dogs. I can see both of those teams winning. I give Seattle a better chance at Green Bay than the Vikings in San Francisco. But the Vikings, if they keep it close, they can make it interesting. And I think just seeing what Minnesota's approach was, riding on Dalvin Cook, Cousins making the passes that were necessary. If you have that formula, you can make things happen. And let's round it out. Let's go to Seattle. They were able to defeat Philadelphia Eagles 17-9. My initial thought on this game is Carson Wentz just can't catch a break. He left the game in the first quarter with a concussion after Jadeveon Clowney of the Seahawks hit him in the back of the head when he was going down to tackle him. I don't think it was a dirty play, and I don't think it was a play that Clowney should have been kicked out of the game for, but it should have been called a penalty. And there's a distinction between that. Even if you're not intentionally trying to do something or hit somebody, if the result is a helmet-to-helmet hit, especially in the back of the head, even if it's a running back or a receiver, and people saying, looking at it because Wentz is a quarterback, he was out of the pocket running forward. So that makes him a runner. If you hit somebody like that going down, that should be a penalty. Was it dirty? I don't know. It may have been. I'm not an analyst in that regard, but you have to flag or penalty the play itself and not the consequences or the results of it. When I saw that, I thought it was a 15-yard penalty. Now, you can't circumvent it and say that Wentz, since he got concussed and was out of the game, they should go back and kick Clowney out of the game or give him the penalty. Because Wentz could have been hit like that and recovered. He's been hit like that a bunch of times and just gets back up and keeps playing. But in that scenario, he did not do that. He got hit and was not able to return. As I said, I don't think it's a dirty play, but a penalty should have been called in that regard because you can see that even in fast time that he did hit him directly in the back of the head with his helmet, and that's a penalty. Now, Josh McCown came into the game and tried to get the Eagles going, but once Wentz was gone, that was not going to happen at all. Clowney did have a very good game though. 5 tackles, 1 sack. He had 7 sacks overall as a team, so their defense came to play. Russell Wilson, you got to consider, not only is he, I think with Lamar Jackson and his brilliant regular season with the Ravens and just his excitement, he's going to win MVP, and he's my MVP as well. There's no argument there. But any other year, Russell Wilson would have been the MVP of the league. 18 of 30, 325 yards passing, 1 TD pass on a big throw to DK Metcalf. Wilson just brings an element of consistency and accountability, and you look at a team and you trust the team in his hands. And even though Seattle only scored 17 points, it wasn't like a 40-point offensive extravaganza. He had control of that game. And to be fair, Philadelphia, once went out, you could tell that they were going to have trouble scoring, so the play calling became more conservative outside of that big throw to Metcalf. But he steered that game and controlled it from the quarterback position and had another strong performance. And speaking of Metcalf, when he came out of Ole Miss in this past draft, I saw the shirtless pics and I saw the body and saw the speed he ran with 4.3 at the combine. And physically, the man is on another level. The top 1% of athleticism is that guy. I also saw him play at Ole Miss. He ran a lot of deep routes and was able to do that, but I didn't see much on the route tree, and I wasn't impressed with his route running. And then he got to Seattle in a scenario with a veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson and a good locker room, and he is showing himself to be the best receiver in this class. As I said, he had 7 catches, 160 yards, had the big TD catch in the contest. He gives Seattle, who have been so used to running, and speaking of running, they had Marshawn Lynch. He had a TD run in the contest. He's back with the squad. We're so used to Seahawks being ball control and running the ball, throwing to the tight ends, throwing to Wilson, or other strong tight ends they've had over the years. But now having a guy like Metcalf brings an element of a big deep threat that makes him very tough to defend. And you saw that in the contest against Philadelphia. That's gonna be he's a problem. He is a major issue for Green Bay when they face off this upcoming weekend in the divisional round. That's why I think Seattle is a very live dog in the contest. So that's my recap of the wild card. Oh, and this Philadelphia. Let wrap up with Philadelphia. If Wentz, I don't want to say he's injury prone, but he has had 3 injuries, and not necessarily all his fault. Now, 2 of them, you can argue, put himself in harm's position. 2 years ago, when he was playing with the Eagles against the Chargers against the Rams in the regular season, when he tore his ACL, he was running towards the goal line, had his leg in a position to be hit, and he got his ACL torn. Then he came back last year and had a back injury. Backs are weird. It's not necessarily your fault if your back gets hurt, but your body is maybe not responding well to things. And then this past game, this game against the Seahawks, running forward with your head down, putting your head in a position to be hit, you got to take slides. You got to avoid those major hits. Wentz put himself in harm's way. He got hit in a hard way and got hurt. So I don't know what you say about Wentz. He proved himself to be a very valuable quarterback, finishing the regular season 4-0 and getting the Eagles to winning the NFC East. So we see the talent is there, but if you can't stay on the field, that's a part of being a professional athlete and being a valuable player is availability. You can have all the skills in the world, but if you can't play due to your injuries and body issues, that's a problem. So that's something the Eagles, I'm not saying they're going to cut him or they're going to look for other options. He's still the top guy with that franchise, and rightfully so. But you have to question, he's not been able to play a full season, postseason involved, because I'm going to include the playoffs, since his rookie year. He said, and I said, all his past 3 seasons have ended with injuries. You have to worry about his long-term availability to show his MVP caliber talent. Because when he's on the field, he could be an MVP caliber candidate player for the team in the entire NFL. But if he's unavailable, that's a problem. All right, let's touch on the news and notes in the coaching world as far as the NFL goes. Cowboys hired Mike McCarthy. I like how they announced the hiring. Technically they announced that Jason Garrett was not going to be retained in the middle of the Eagles game on Sunday afternoon. Real classy, Jerry Jones. And now they've hired Mike McCarthy. Is he a major upgrade over Jason Garrett? I think he is. McCarthy's won a Super Bowl and has led his team to multiple division titles and led them to long playoff runs, something that Jason Garrett never did with the Cowboys. He comes from the offensive side of the ball, so he's going to be able to work with the offense, which is the strength of the Cowboys, work with Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and all of those guys. So that's a good check mark in that regard. He's a veteran of the NFL. He knows how it works, how it operates. So he's not going to be spooked by Jerry Jones necessarily holding the post-game pressers of his own and doing all the multiple radio shows as the owner of the team. So that's when you look at all of that and say, okay, that Mike McCarthy is a veteran. He's a pro. He's dealt with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, 2 very strong personality quarterbacks. Now, I know it didn't work well with him and Aaron Rodgers at the very end, but when you're together with the guy for all of those years, you're going to see tensions with your quarterback and head coach. Look at Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Now, they didn't get to that level of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and that's a knock on McCarthy as well. He's had 2 guys who some would say 2 of the top 10 quarterbacks in history of the NFL, or if you made a list of 2 of the top 10 or 20, Rodgers and Brett Favre would be on there. Now, to be fair, Favre was kind of towards the end of his career, but then you saw his revival with the Vikings and wondered what was going on there. But with Favre, I think that was a weird deal because he kept retiring and coming back. You didn't know if he was going to play. I don't put that necessarily too much on McCarthy. Now, with Aaron Rodgers, he did develop him and build him to a guy that slipped in the first round to maybe an all-time great quarterback. McCarthy does deserve some credit for that. But they also only made it to one Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl that they appeared in, but only one Super Bowl appearance and championship with Aaron Rodgers. That's something you do have to question and look at. But I think it's a good move overall for the Cowboys to get a value guy with head coaching experience. They didn't go the Matt Rule or Urban Meyer routes or try to trade half the team to get Sean Payton from the Saints or Mike Zimmer from the Vikings. So you look at all of that stuff. I think it's a solid move overall. And now it goes to the players. Because, I know Garrett became a punching bag for the Cowboys, and it's pretty easy to mock him and what he did or didn't do for the Cowboys. But it comes down to the players. They have to be accountable and step up and avoid this malaise of just being an average team when you have one of the top 5 or 10 rosters in the entire NFL. So if the Cowboys fail, it's less of McCarthy and more on Jerry Jones and the culture that he set up and the players. They have to do better. Washington hired Ron Rivera. When it comes to Washington, you just need to have a consistent voice with that team. You don't need a retread. And you say Rivera is kind of a retread because he was just fired by Carolina, but he's fresh. He's fresh in the system. He knows what he's doing. You're not getting the Mari Scheinheimers, the Joe Gibbs, the second time around Steve Spurriers. None of these guys who are all talented head coaches when they were at other places. By the time they got to Washington, it just was not the right spot. Or no more Jay Gruden's, a guy who was an average offensive coordinator and didn't do too much for Washington. Rivera comes in there and accountability, brings a good voice to the team. Took a team to Super Bowl appearance. So you look at Rivera, and that's what Washington needs. They just need a good, solid football guy in that locker room. Bruce Allen being out as general manager and president of the team, that's a good move. That's a good step in the right direction. So we'll see what happens with Washington. Some other coaching positions that have have opened up and may be hired, trying to get confirmation on them. The New York Giants look like they're going to hire Joe Judge, the wide receiver coach for the Patriots. I thought that Matt Rule was going to be a guy of interest from Baylor. Maybe Josh McDaniel, if you were looking, he's offensive coordinator for the Patriots. If you're going to hire someone from New England, maybe you go with him. But the wide receiver coach, and I talked about the uninspired wide receiver effort from the Patriots throughout the regular season and in the playoffs, I don't know about that move. We'll see what happens there. The Browns, they're still looking for a head coach. The Panthers, Matt Rule, looks like he's going to be the guy. The Baylor head coach, he's going to be with the Panthers. You got to give him credit. He was able to revive 2 college programs in Temple and Baylor went from a 1-win team with now granted it was mostly because of off the field issues, but a program that was in a lot of disarray for it's just a negative culture, not just wins and losses, but just the treatment of women and a lot of other toxic issues going on there. He led him to a double-digit win campaign and a Sugar Bowl appearance this year. And plus he has assistant coaching experience in the NFL. So he's not coming into it with eyes wide openly confused by what's going on. So Panthers made that hire. We'll see what happens there. We're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some Georgia college athletics here on the Sports Inquirer Show in the technical state of Georgia athletics. All right, welcome back to Sports Inquirer Show. Emar Soputu here recording this on January 7th, 2020. Happy New Year once again to all of you listening out there around the world. Yeah, let's touch on some technical state of Georgia athletics. We haven't done any reviews of the new year. We've had some bowl games and some college basketball action take place. So let's review some things kind of in a rapid-fire way to conclude today's show. We'll start with Georgia State football. The Panthers fell 38-17 to Wyoming in the Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl. It was the Panthers' 3rd bowl game in 5 years, and Georgia State finished the season with a 7-6 record after the contest. The Panthers just were not able to get anything going offensively. Now, Dan Ellington did throw for 156 yards and have a touchdown in the air and had a TD on the ground in one of his 14 rushing attempts, finishing with 70 yards there. So the Panthers just have 355 total yards of total offense, which broke its single-season record, which they did back in 2000 and 15, and they finished the year also with the most points, touchdowns, rushing yards, and rushing TDs in school history. But just in the contest, I'll say more defensively were the major issues against Wyoming. They were just not able to stop the passing and throwing of the Cowboys, and they do finish the year as a 7-6, which they were one win shy of setting the record for single wins in a year. They really want to get that 8th win, but it did not take place. But once again, the Panthers playing another bowl game and expanding the program and doing some things there. Georgia defeated Baylor 26-14 in the Sugar Bowl. Takeaway from that contest is you have to respect the Bulldogs for a different approach to the Sugar Bowl than they did last time when they were beaten pretty badly by Texas. You saw that the team was ready to play. And sure, you had guys like Andrew Thomas sitting out of the game for professional reasons, which I don't have a problem with at all. Some people say you should finish the drill, be with your team the entire way. But we've made these bowl games to the point where if you're not in the semifinals or the championship game, to play for a championship game, the bowls really do not have major impact on your season. So if guys want to sit out of that game that they play the bowl game to prepare for the NFL or whatever professional aspirations they have, I don't have a problem with that. What it did do, though, for Georgia is you were able to see guys like the offensive line play some younger players. You're able to see George Pickens have a big performance and just dominate the contest from the wide receiver position. You're able to see Zeus, the running back for Georgia, get some stop, get some run, because DeAndre Swift, who declared for the NFL draft, he did not play too much in that contest. So the younger guys had an opportunity to play, and that's very big. And the end of the season with a victory is very important. I don't care if it's the Sugar Bowl or the Backlot Bowl or whatever bowl you can think of. End of the season on a win does matter. It gives you momentum in the offseason, which carries over into the next year. So Georgia was able to do that. And sticking with college football, as said, DeAndre Swift, he declared for the draft. Tua from Alabama, he declared for the draft as well. Smart move by him. If you're going to rehab, get paid while you're doing it. And he has put together a resume worthy of for a first-round pick. He'll be selected by a team, even if he has to redshirt the entire year with this hip injury. I'd rather do that while rehabbing and getting paid by and being treated by the best of the best. And that's another thing people always forget about as well. They talk about if he went back to Alabama to rehab and possibly try to play again for a senior campaign. One, and not saying that Alabama doesn't have good doctors. I mean, they're one of the top programs in the country. I'm sure their doctors are excellent, and I'm not saying they conduct malpractice on him, but you have the opportunity to work out and train and rehab with a professional organization at the NFL level. That's the best treatment that you're ever going to get. And plus, you will be compensated and getting a paycheck and getting paid while you're rehabbing. While at Alabama, you will not have that scenario. And furthermore, if you look at the quarterback class and the breakdown of it, say he went back to Alabama and tried to play, and if he didn't play at a high level, stock would drop tremendously. And also, he's probably going to be the second or third quarterback taken in this draft. Joe Burrow is going to be number one in Cincinnati unless something drastic happens. Justin Herbert, he's healthy. He may be a guy, the quarterback from Oregon. He may move past Tua in the draft because he's going to be healthy and available. Outside of that, Tua's not going to drop out of the top 10, if that. He comes back next year. Justin Fields will probably be in the NFL draft from Ohio State. Trevor Lawrence will be the number one pick in the draft. Even if he has an average year, just what you've seen from him the past 2 years, he's going to be number one pick next year. It's kind of an Andrew Luck situation from a few years ago. So Tua's probably going to be the third quarterback picked in the draft anyway. So you go to the pros, you rehab, you get yourself right, and you don't owe it to Alabama. You won a championship for them. You provide them some great memories and great performances. He's good. So I didn't mind him going to the draft at all. It made complete sense. And then Georgia State basketball, they're back in conference play. Dropped a tough one at Arkansas State, 90-87 last night on January 6th. Damon Wilson had missed a double-double, had 19 points and 8 rebounds for the Panthers, who lost their second straight road game. They lost at Coastal Carolina earlier in the week. Now, Georgia State did lead 84-80 with a minute 40 left, but Arkansas State went on an 8-0 run, able to take the lead. And Justin Roberts hit a three-pointer with a few seconds left, but they were not able to get a foul on the Red Wolves, who the ball down the court, got a dunk at the very end. So tough loss for the Panthers. Looking at the recap, interesting statistics. Arkansas State went 34-42 from the free throw line, while Georgia State was just 14-17. That's a pretty high discrepancy. So you got to wonder what was going on there. And then the Panthers got 29 fouls called on them, while the Red Wolves just had 15. So I'm not saying that the conspiracy is in and that they lost the game because of that. But when you see that big of a split, especially when you're the road team, you're kind of wondering what's going on. We'll be down to practice later on to speak with Coach Lanier and some of the players about the start of the the Sun Belts conference start to their year. So we'll be down there talking to them with that. They face Louisiana on Thursday, so they get right back on it in a few days, back in Sun Belt play. And that's concluded today's show. Thanks for listening to our broadcast. We'll be doing another show within the next few days, so if you want us to talk about any specific topic, you know how to contact us. But if you don't, I'll remind you again. You can head to the mothership to sportsinquirer.net, premier 7 news and notes in the world of sports. Go to Twitter and Instagram, Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. Just do a search. We pop right up. You like us, you subscribe, and you can get everything that we're doing. Facebook, 2 pages there, the Sports Inquirer and Sports Inquirer. That's one word. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud under The Sports Inquirer. And that's where you get all of our past shows, current shows that we're doing, and interviews, and things in the future. Until next time, good fight and good night.